Hey Fit Pros, it's your host Tyler Valencia here. I quickly want to share a free resource we have on the KIPS website and YouTube channel. If you're struggling with your online workouts or just want to see the items that we recommend, check out our virtual training resources page. You'll find breakdowns on streaming setups, reviews on microphones, and other free videos that can help you build your fitness business today. Did I mention they're free? Go check them out at the link in the description or head over to our website to find them under the blog tab. Welcome to the KIPS podcast. My name is Tyler Valencia and I'm the president of KIPS and Time to Train Fitness. We have a great one. Conferences. We go to them, we attend them online and in person, and we have the owner of DCA Fitness, Jamie Nicholls. Thank you for being my guest on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, I'm excited for today just to dive into your background, conferences, advice that you have for Fit Pros, and let's kick things off for the listeners. Can you give a little bit of a brief description on your current business and even your background?
All right. Well, like you said, my name is Jamie Nicholls. My company is actually called Fitness Conventions Incorporated, and we have been producing fitness conferences that provide continuing education courses for professionals in the industry to satisfy their certification requirements and further their education. I started in the industry at 19. I became certified as a group fitness professional, and I went to my very first DCAC conference as a staff assistant. I fell in love with it, and I knew that I wanted to be involved some way or somehow with conferences. I quickly realized that my place was behind the scenes organizing events. By 2006, I was the registration manager for the company. In 2011, I bought into the company. And then by 2019, right before COVID, I bought out my partner and became CEO of Fitness Conventions Incorporated.
Wow. With volunteering and being a part of the company, what was that factor that made you feel like, okay, yeah, I want to be involved more with this organization?
Well, I had an advantage because the two ladies that had bought it, they weren't the ones who originally started. Allison Boyd and Shannon Elkins, they bought into the company in 2001, about 10 years after it had begun. And that was my first event. And I worked for them at a facility in Mechanicsville, Virginia called Club Fit. And that was when I had first become a group fitness professional, and I just started teaching classes. So I loved all the energy, the excitement, just everybody in the same place that wanted the same kind of things that you did, that they wanted to teach group fitness classes. They wanted to change people's lives in the health and fitness industry. And just everything that I left with, the inspiration and the motivation, I knew that that was where I wanted to go.
I dig it. So many times I speak with Fit Pros that they feel like they're not doing everything that they thought they would. And going into different areas, that's one thing that a lot of individuals don't know, that there's more than just teaching. There's conferences, there's education, there's other pieces involved in this industry. And it's just taking that leap, figuring out more, finding out what's a part of it. And I think the next area I want to kind of dive into here is over the last couple of years, before we hit the record button, talked about how the business has been changing. But I feel like that's a really good topic to involve in the podcast because a lot of people did. So how has your business adapted, changed over the last 2 years?
Well, had you asked me prior to COVID-19 if I would ever have a virtual event, I would have said no. Not that I don't feel that they're valuable, because I do. It's just that I was so involved with in-person events and the value of connecting one-on-one with other people in your same industry, in your same position, that I didn't want to go there. Other people were, and that was fine, but I never thought I would.
Yeah.
And then COVID hit. And it was right on the verge when we were about to expand our fitness conventions again to the Pacific Northwest. And we had an event planned in Seattle in April of 2020, and we had to shut it down, of course.
Yeah.
And so that was really unfortunate because it kind of halted the big plans that I had right after becoming CEO of the company. And after that, I sat on it for a little bit. I was like, we all kind of thought this will be a month or two. And obviously it wasn't. So I talked with some colleagues in the industry And they just said, it's easy. We'll help you. You can just do it virtually.
Mm-hmm.
And I am the kind of person and the kind of business person who wants to do everything. I don't like to hire people to do
Mm-hmm.
things. I like to be involved in every aspect, every part of what I'm doing so that it feels personal and family oriented. And
Mm-hmm.
so I just dove in. I had the Zoom people on like speed dial so that I could figure out how exactly that I was going to run this event. I ended up
Mm-hmm.
building it through my website. I made it very simple because I knew a lot of my target market and a lot of the attendees that normally come to my event weren't comfortable with it at all.
Mm-hmm.
So I made little how-to videos on how do you do this and how do you log into Zoom, and just I made it as basic as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So in August of 2020, we had an in-person event, or excuse me, a virtual event. And we tried to make it different. We ran it over 3 weekends. So instead of having
Mm.
to sit in front of your computer for 8 hours at a time for 3 days straight, we did little 4-hour segments for 3 weekends in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it went over really well. Obviously the trade show aspect is not the same in a virtual event. And so that was a little bit hard, especially for the sponsors and exhibitors
Yeah.
that wanted to showcase their products. But the education was there, and that's always been my passion from the beginning is educating people and helping them grow in the industry.
Yeah.
So then the Seattle event that was scheduled for April of 2020, we just kind of sat back. I actually got out of the hotel contract and by rescheduling it to November of 2020, thinking, oh, certainly by, 10 months or 6 months time, this will be over and we can focus. And we weren't able to do that. So we eventually had to cancel that and we moved it to a virtual event as well.
Mm-hmm.
And we made that one even bigger. We, for the first Pacific Northwest FitCon, the PNW FitCon, we had over 400 people attending virtually, and we'd never even had an in-person event. So I was really pleased with that. And it went seamless because by that time, December of 2020, everybody already knew how to use Zoom. They already knew how to sit in front of their computer.
Mm-hmm.
They already knew how to do all the things. So that one went pretty easy. And then we waited and we waited and we waited. And 2021 came along, and I already had the contract with the hotel because you have to do that many years in advance. And
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to, but I felt like there was no other way around but hybrid for 2021.
Mm-hmm.
So we were very unique in our approach. We had an in-person event just like it used to be prior to COVID. We had a virtual option where we had 4 of the rooms streaming the classes as well as in person.
Nice.
And I think it went okay, but it was the hardest thing I've ever done. It was running 2 events simultaneously.
Mm-hmm.
I was literally running through the hotel from room to room and like trying to get it all working. And it was fine. And I had a lot of people on my side and a lot of people helping me work it out. And we actually had another unique part of that event where we had some of the presenters that couldn't come in person, that could only do over Zoom. And so we had one room where we just had the presenter on a screen. So if anybody that was in person wanted to see them, they would go to that room. Or if you were virtual, you could see those courses as well. So we had kind of 3 different components to the hybrid event. And it was a lot of learning, as we've all done in the industry, and not just this industry, but all industries.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the technology that has developed over the past 18 months, 2 years has been crazy, and just learning it and how you can apply it to your business.
Yeah.
It was a lot, but I'm glad that we did it because that made me figure out what I wanted my plan for 2022 to be.
I dig it. I dig it. That's part of, as you and I were talking about, with being an entrepreneur, with being a business owner. It's trying things, learning new things, and I'm blown away with all the options you gave people at your conference to have all those different components. A lot of time, thought goes into those. It's not as simple as, okay, we're just going to get a projector and we'll just put it up here. There's so much more.
So far from that.
Yeah. So much more goes into the technical items of streaming, video, that if one of those pieces is out of whack, it's gonna throw a wrench in things. So a lot of credit to you, and just thinking about those. It's my mind is just racing with all that goes into that. But it's great that you did it. But then now you're also looking towards 2022. How do I want to shape things? And I think that what you shared also goes into your approach to here's my attendees, the people that are coming. I want to offer them more. I want to be able to provide them in different ways. And I think that goes into a lot of what I've heard about the conferences from instructors, just well organized, and it's great. It's really great stuff. So let's kind of talk about the education of it. Conferences, education. I've admitted in previous podcast episodes how prior to a couple years ago, I had never attended a conference, and it was unfortunate. And I think it was my episode that I did with one of my professors from college, Dr. Jan Schroeder. I admitted how I never attended IDEA because she would always have these opportunities for students to participate, to be a volunteer, and then they would be able to attend it. And I admitted on the podcast that I never did it. And with conferences, I see now how valuable they can be for Fit Pros to get experience in other areas, to learn new concepts that they can apply in their business. With your conferences, how do you feel like the topics have kind of evolved over the years?
Well, let me go back for 1 minute to what you said about you didn't go, because I think that's one of the biggest things that I've ever thought of as long as I've been attending conferences. You don't know until you go.
Yeah.
Like you have no idea what a fitness conference is like until you attend it. It's not like a business conference. It's not like a medical conference. It's so different.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when I explain to friends or people that aren't in the industry or my neighbors what I do, they just have no idea unless they come. And so I recruit all my friends to come and help me so they can see. And every time they're like, this is so much fun. It's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun. So, you know, you can't fault anybody for not going to events because you just don't know until you go.
Yeah.
But I'll always try to encourage. Okay, so back to the topic. Over the past 10 years, how have we changed topics? Well, one of the biggest things I think is DCAC started out in 1991 as the Washington, D.C. Aerobics Convention. So since then, we have expanded to offer a lot more than just aerobics. We do personal training, yoga, Pilates, aquatics, senior fitness, nutrition, business classes, a lot more to kind of have a more well-rounded approach in the industry. But I think that it started with was just group fitness or just aerobics, as they used to call it. So for a long time, it was really difficult to find independent presenters. And what I mean by independent presenters is somebody who's not sponsored by a company, somebody who doesn't have someone paying for them to come and teach classes on their behalf as part of a sponsored brand, just someone who is educated in the industry, who wants to share their knowledge, who takes the same thing that we all have available to us, which is the research in the fitness industry, and then puts it on a level where fitness professionals can understand it and apply it to the classes and the trainings that they do. So because the industry seemed to be focused the past 10 years on a lot of pre-choreographed programs, it was difficult to find independent people to come and either show new choreograph or show new training methods or take what we already know and spin it a different way so that you can incorporate it into your classes or talk about the newest research. I felt like that for the past 10 years, people were so excited about all of the prepackaged programs. And I mean, I took a lot myself. I got certified in RIPT and piloxing, and I loved it. It was great for the space that I was in at that time because it was something that was given to me. I had already been an instructor, so I knew how to teach, but they gave me the music, they gave me the choreography, they gave me all the materials, and all I literally had to do was look at it the night before and then go teach it. And that was helpful to me. And I think that there is definitely a space for programs like that. And I think that they bring value to our industry. But I felt like for a while that the education piece it was difficult to find people that wanted to share education without being part of a brand.
Interesting.
And so, we have a lot of new brands, and there's some well-known brands. And I like to partner with the ones that focus on the education. So I partner with Core Health and Fitness that owns Schwinn, Stairmaster, and Nautilus. I partner with Savier Fitness. They do Bar Above, Tabata Boot Camp, and they have a new Pumped Up Strength. And one of the things I like about those two companies is that they have education first and foremost. And then they have a brand, but you don't have to go and say, I'm teaching a bar above class. You're teaching a bar class, and you're taking the education that you learned from the creators of that and putting it into your own class. And so you still have a little bit of creativity on how you want to be an instructor. And the same thing with the cycling classes. They give you the education and they give you the format and the class design, but everybody's class is still able to be different. And that's what I like about it. I partner with Indigo Aquatics. They do a lot of different aquatic exercises with different equipment, and then some not equipment, but it's all education based. I partner with Functional Aging Institute, and then also the Integrative Movement Institute with Dr. Evan Osar. And just like I said before, they're all education based. And so that's one of the things that I really, really like to bring to fitness professionals, because you don't have to pay a huge amount of money to get certified. You don't have to pay the monthly fee. You don't have to pay for the separate music thing. You can if you want to, but it's all about educating and elevating and sharing your passion with other people. And that's what I think is so important.
Yeah. I think with what you just mentioned there and what we were talking about before hitting the record button with the application of the education, that you get certified. And I've said this in other episodes, other podcasts that I've been on, is that once you get certified, whether it's PT or Group X, that's just the beginning. You got to learn through experience, getting more knowledge, because ultimately you're taking that information and you're applying it to your business. And I think that some instructors that don't get in a rhythm of that or don't seek out further information to improve their business, it's probably why they seek out other industries. And I mean, I remember like when I first started that there was I don't know how true it was, but that being an instructor in the fitness industry has like a shelf life of less than 2 years, because to get recycled, it's hard. It's not a 9 to 5. It's not you clock in and you clock out. You're often maneuvering your business, your hours to fit people's needs before work, after work, and being able to grow in that aspect. And ultimately, when they take these entry-level certifications, whether they are PT, Group X, it's just basic stuff that you can't. I think it was the episode I did with Dr. Evan Osar. Him and I don't want to say joked, but I made a joke about how the sections on anatomy, biomechanics, those are 30 pages. That is literally just a little snippet of what these topics are. And you can't say that you know these items after that. They are just the bare minimum. I've helped write some of those chapters in the past. And so it's very bare minimal. So you got to continue to grow, continue to expand in those areas. And that's where I feel conferences really come in handy. You have a lot of instructors right now in the industry that speak at conferences that they take this information, they expand on it, but then they provide it in a way that it's easy to digest for people, that they can be able to understand these harder concepts and then be able to apply them, which I think is great in terms of the time that we're in and consistently growing as an industry that is still relatively a young one. We're still figuring things out and still growing different aspects. And with now shifting this episode to talking about something I think a lot of individuals have had to think about and try to grow themselves, is their community with events. And I think this would be a great question for you, because a lot of fit pros, they typically just know one thing. They don't know outside items, whether it's technology or event planning. And the big thing I feel like over the last year is people talking about their community, their members. How do I build these out? And what kind of tips do you think you could provide for fit pros that are thinking, okay, I want to do an online event, or I want to do an in-person event for my community? What are some tips that you can provide them?
Well, I think it's great when people want to get involved with their community and provide events. One of the biggest focus of my events this year is community and collaborating. So first of all, I think that's a really good thing that a lot of people are beginning to do. The first tip I would have would be, it's kind of a no-brainer regarding COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
You'll have to review the guidelines for your facility and your
Yeah.
location. And the biggest part, that was the biggest thing that I did last year, was keep people informed, because it's
Yeah.
always changing. And depending upon where you have the event. So I'm having 3 conferences in 2022, but I'm going to have different guidelines for each event because they're in 3 different states.
Mm.
And so what I did was, instead of say this is Fitness Conventions Incorporated policy, we are bound to go by the guidelines of the hotel or the venue that we're at.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to plan an event, especially right now in the climate that we're in, you'll need to review the guidelines for the facility and location, and then just keep everyone informed. Right now, as it is for our event coming up in Seattle and the end of April, you have to wear a mask.
Mm-hmm.
You have to provide proof of vaccination status. In Virginia, our event in August last year, you didn't have to provide proof of vaccination status. You didn't have to wear a mask if you were vaccinated, but no one was checking the cards. So we just went, one of the things that I did that was really unique that other people could do in the climate that we're in, like I said, is I provided a stoplight wristbands. So instead of just having your typical yellow or neon green wristband to allow admission into classes, I had red, yellow, and green, and they worked like a stoplight. Red is if I don't want anybody to come near me, stay 6 feet away.
Mm-hmm.
Yellow is if you're okay with like a fist bump. And then green is like, I'm okay standing close to you and talking to you and maybe even hugging if we know each other.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a way that I could incorporate this new world that we're in, without people having to be like, oh, are you vaccinated?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not. I don't want to. Do you? I feel like that wasn't the reason for bringing people back together. Bringing people back together in August of 2021 was to reunite as the fitness industry and to offer that in-person experience. And I wanted everybody to be comfortable. So I kept people informed about how it changed. In fact, the Thursday before the event, we got a notice from the governor of Virginia, which we're not in DC, but right outside DC in Reston, Virginia. And we got a notice that we were moving into, I think, the orange zone or the red zone. The COVID cases had gone up. And then they had a whole bunch of really weird terminology. They said, we're not requiring masks, but we're requesting masks.
Mm-hmm.
So that got everybody all up in arms, because they were like, well, you said we didn't have to wear masks if we're vaccinated, and now you're saying we do. And I'm like, I just took a breath before the people had to get it off their chest how they were feeling. And you just say, no, this is what it really is.
Mm-hmm.
It's, if you are vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask, but they're requesting that everybody wears a mask. But I mean, there's just so many things, especially with COVID and the spike in cases, even that we're experiencing now. I think as long as you keep people informed, that's the best that you can do. And the worst thing would be to go about it and just not have any information or have outdated information.
Yeah, it's I like the idea that you shared about the wristbands, because I feel like that's one of the things that, with working in an industry that is used to be very face-to-face, hands-on, whether you are a Group X personal trainer, you are manipulating someone with your hands, or you're very up close in their business, we'll say.
Right.
You're very all up in there. And now providing that option, I think, is ultimately, I feel like you have to always respect anybody's outlook on whatever it is. And the wristbands, right, I feel like, is a great way for that. That's a really a good one that when you mentioned it, a story came up in my mind where I remember one of the last conferences that I attended, that was a fellow instructor that I'd talked before virtually, and we ended up giving a hug because we connected before on virtually, but it was like great to meet them in person. But they did ask me as well, like, well, am I vaccinated? And those were things that with like a wristband, you can know someone's comfort level in those areas without having to ask it. And because even, because you don't know how someone would react to that. So it's a great way to keep the focus, in my opinion, on other things, more important things. Why we're there? We're there to learn. We're there to gather, network, all those kinds of items that you don't want them thinking about other things. They can just quickly take a look and see what their comfort level is. Great in that aspect. With now thinking about conferences and why people would want to come, one of the things that I really discovered when I started attending as a speaker was the networking opportunities. Is that one of the things that you like to promote as part of conferences?
Yes, I do. We normally, we have a trade show and we have usually what we call our Friday night party, and we have a little keynote, just a short one, but then it's just all about community. It's all about connecting other people. And one of the things I've learned producing the events over the years is that it's all about connection. It's ultimately all about human connection. And that's why one of the themes of all of my events this year is community and collaboration. And I think that I've had experience where I've reached out to people and said, hey, I have this event. Would you be interested in coming on? And crickets, like nothing. And then you get someone like Trisha Madden, who was the 2020 IDEA Fitness Instructor of the Year. And she says, hey, I think you should connect with so-and-so. Let me give you an introduction. Just like you and I were talking about before the podcast, you knew somebody that you said, let me give you an introduction. That just goes so far, so much further than a cold email. And I think that if it's one thing, it's helped me grow and it's helped my business grow. And I try to pay it forward. When I see people in the industry that I think, oh, well, this person should know that person, just send off a quick intro. I don't know how you're going to work together, but here's this person. This is why I like them. This is the value they bring to my business. I think connections are really important. So networking is 100% part of my events. And I really think it's always important to just be open to new ideas and to changing and to meeting new people and figuring out how you can collaborate together, because there's space for everybody.
Yeah.
And that brings me to one more thing I wanted to mention when you talked about tips. I feel like one of the biggest tips I have is if you're new to events, it's okay to start small, to choose one lane and excel at that before you try to offer everything to everyone. I felt like through COVID, we all had to adapt and change, and it was great. And it was a great learning experience. But my plan for 2022 is my events are going to be in person only. There's not going to be a hybrid portion. There's not going to be a virtual portion. That doesn't mean that I won't have virtual offerings. I'll be doing separate virtual things, but I know how to plan an in-person event and organize it really well. And I excel at that. And if I want to keep my business to feel family friendly and small and community oriented, I need to focus on one thing at a time. So instead of trying to offer everything for everybody and all the options, I'm choosing to just do in-person only to make that experience the best that I know how to make it. So that's a piece of advice I have for people who are interested. Just because you want to do an event and you've never done one before doesn't mean you have to have it be in person and virtual or hybrid or both at the same time. Because let me tell you, both at the same time is a lot.
Yeah.
And work together. Don't try to do it all on your own. I think that 99% of the time, what you'll find is there's people willing to help you.
Yeah.
And there's people who want to do the same things as you. And I think we're definitely stronger together.
I dig it. One of the things that I think would be fun now with talking about conferences, education, and one of the areas that you and I joked about a little bit always with the business section, because I'll share a story that one of the last times I spoke at a conference, it was years ago, it wasn't recent. It was years ago that I did one of my business lectures, and one of the participants just told me, why don't we learn more about this? Why are we learning more about business at conferences? And you and I both shared about how these topics are so important for Fit Pros, whether you're new, you're a veteran, learning more about business. And that could be your marketing. That could be about topics outside of exercise science, but these are areas that help you continue to grow. What would be your pitch to an instructor that was looking at the options and they're like, oh, I'd rather go to another lecture on core? And I'm making that joke because I do teach core lectures. So don't think that I'm making fun of core lectures, but that I'm looking at
Everybody
going to a
always
core
wants
one.
to go to the core lecture, for sure.
So what's your pitch?
So my pitch is this. I did not know how much I needed business courses until I just bit the bullet and signed up.
Yeah.
And I'm in a business cohort, and I have a team of ladies led by Shannon Fable that I can bounce ideas off of and talk to and collaborate with. And it's been so helpful. And I didn't even know that I needed it until I started it. So one of the things that we're doing for 2022 is, or let me back up. In 2021, I was so involved in all the things that I had learned, from technology to how to have different registration software, e-commerce stuff,
Mm-hmm.
finding your why, figuring out your way, what you want to do in this world, how you want to make an impact, that I wanted to share it. And I wanted all the people that had helped me along the way to share it. But the problem is that I had several rooms of business classes backed right up next to the dance class or the core training class. And people 9 times out of 10 are going to choose the movement class where they can get ideas for their courses.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's really important that they know the business stuff, regardless of whether you just teach at your local facility for a bigger company or whether you have your own business. I think it's important that you can market yourself, set yourself apart from other instructors, but also work together with them.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had a lot of business classes last year, and they weren't as well attended as I would like. So I made a new plan for 2022. And that is, I'm going to have one room of lecture classes, whether they're nutrition classes or about e-commerce or about teaching virtually or in person, just one room of lectures. And then I'm going to have 2 panels. And Friday of each of my events, the panel is going to be collaboration over competition. So it goes with the whole community thing. Mm-hmm. Whether you're a veteran in the industry or whether you're newer to the industry, you can always work with your community, make a community of people in your classes, and collaborate and work together rather than try to set you should be able to set yourself apart so that you're different from other people in the industry, but not in a negative way. Mm-hmm. And so I'm having a whole panel about how to work together and having experts on this panel that can speak to that. And the second day is going to be a career development panel. Mm-hmm. And the unique thing that I'm doing is that I'm not offering any other classes during the panel. Mm-hmm. So there isn't any competition about where to go. You have to go to the panel unless you want to go sit in your room, I guess. But I wanted to make sure that people realize how important it is to invest in yourself. Like I said before, whether you're working for yourself or whether you're working for a facility or another company, it's important to take those steps to learn the education, to learn the technology, and then also to learn about how you can be involved and collaborate together.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I feel like over the last 2 years, instructors that have been saying for years, oh, I'm too old for social media. Oh, I don't want to learn all that stuff. I feel like they have to now. They really need to. And There's no more that, I don't need to use technology for my training. Well, you need to now. And it's great that area is also growing. It's an area that there's more information out there applicable to the fitness industry with business, with technology, with social media, all these items that are associated with growing your business. And it can be an independent or someone working for a gym. So the resources out there are growing that area. And I can say that when learning more about streaming, a lot of the stuff that I learned from was not even in the fitness industry. And that's evolved over the last 2 years. So a lot of great stuff for Fit Pros to look at and to continue on this with things are shifting, how education is shifting, the new opportunities out there. What are some other areas other than business that you could see growing?
Looking at the way it's shifting, I think obviously the way that you offer your classes, I think each part is going to grow. I think in-person classes are going to grow. I think virtual classes are going to grow. And I think hybrid classes are going to grow. And I don't think if you're offering classes to your community that are hybrid, that's a little bit different setup than offering an education conference. One of the tricky things we had with that was how to set up your PowerPoint to show to the room and stream through Zoom at the same time. You're not going to have a PowerPoint if you're teaching a group fitness class or doing personal training. So I think, hybrid is a really good option for those people that are doing one-on-one trainings or small groups. I definitely think both just virtual and hybrid classes and training sessions are going to grow. I think that programs for active aging populations are going to continue to grow. That's been popular for some time now, and we have always offered it. And I think it's really important now. I know that Dr. Dan Ritchie does a class for caregivers. I think that's really important. I think because the older population is, I think because more people find themselves in a position as a caregiver, you need to know how to exercise with people. I think that it's not the same as what we're doing day to day. I think bar classes are going to grow. I think that mental and emotional wellness as a whole is going to grow. I think that the fitness industry is shifting from just physical appearance, and has been for quite some time, to wellness as a whole, making sure you're mentally healthy and making sure you're emotionally healthy as well as physically healthy. I think recovery strategies, whether it's like heat and cold, flexibility, post-workout nutrition, stretching classes, what you can do for recovery is becoming more important in the industry. Career development, as I've talked about how we're going to have a whole panel on that, and community. I also spoke about that. And then I think it's needless to say, trackers and wearable technology. People like the technology. I think that's going to continue to grow as the new technology develops. And I've always been kind of fascinated.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. The areas of the fitness industry, as we talked about, there's so many areas. It's not just you train people to look good. So many different things that are part of what people can offer. And the one I really want to touch on there, with some people might be listening to me thinking I'm going to talk about how bars and expand. No, is with the technology that it's going to continue to grow. And so learning more about it, adapting your business offerings, it's a great way to grow yourself. I think that one of the things that I've loved over the last few years is seeing the independent instructors grow outside of the gym and be able to make more money, be able to grow in a different area. And you just have to be willing to take those steps and to continue learning about them, because they will grow. And I still see, I've said to people that I don't really engage on Facebook in different groups when people are asking the same question that I see all the time. But I will see sometimes occasional instructors say, like, I just need to know what works the best with, we'll say, with Zoom, but I'm not going to invest in this. I'm not going to buy this. And like, why are you asking these questions? Like, if you're not going to take the time to learn more about it, offer something better. Because in my opinion, with expanding online and growing your online business, it's more than just turning on your Zoom on your laptop and just teaching a class. There's so much more that you can be a part of it, and you can offer something professional that looks great, that people are going to see, oh, wow, there's a lot of value in this. And it's not comparing apples to apples, but when you worked in a gym, you are creating that value. You are showcasing to potential clients, to members, hey, like, here's all my services. This is why I'm a Fit Pro. Here's why you want to train with me, invest your money in a program with me. With online, similar concept. You are creating that value, showing them, hey, this is my business. I have a professional setup. I have good sound. So you could, you hear me. I have a good camera so that you could see me. It's not just, okay, you got to show up and just hitting the same friends over and over on Facebook to join your workout. There's so much more you can do with that. So I always like just throwing that in there for people listening to just grow outside of it, continue to grow in that area. But
one thing I'd like to say about that is, for those of us that have been in the industry for a long time, you have to learn the technology to stay relevant.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm looking, I have my kids home this week because they were exposed to COVID, so they can't go to school. And my third grader got sent home with a Chromebook. And I mean, he's worked on my computer before, and I've shown him things, and I homeschooled him last year, but he made a PowerPoint presentation yesterday.
What?
And I was like,
awesome.
What is happening right now? I mean, for people in the fitness industry to stay relevant, you have to know some sort of technology, because the third graders of the world are coming up and they're going to know all of it. They're going to know the newest things that are being developed or haven't even been developed yet. And they'll just pick it up so quickly. It's just, it was crazy to me. I mean, he has an iPad, and kids are really good with technology anyway, but to create a PowerPoint presentation, I mean, I think it took me a couple of years to learn that.
That's awesome. I dig that a lot.
It speaks to that you have to stay relevant in the industry. And like you said, if you're going to do online classes, you have to show that you're putting in an effort and sell the classes and make sure it's a good quality product that you're providing if you're going to put your name behind it.
Agree 100%. And as we get now to our podcast takeaways, this is the time where I usually share the story of where this question came from. And at the moment, it's January 2022. And I believe I saw this documentary available for people to watch on Amazon Prime if they want to go see it. It's called Iron Cowboy. Long story short, the individual in this documentary, he did 50 Ironman lengths. He didn't do actual competition, but 50 Ironman lengths in 50 different states in 50 days. Insane, just crazy. And on Twitter, he was asked, what are 3 myths about Ironman? And I thought that, oh, well, let me shift that and now apply it with the podcast. So Jamie, what are 3 myths about the fitness industry?
All right. Well, my first myth is that you already have to be a professional to lead classes and train people. I think that is a myth, because I think the first step is to get your certification, whether it's a group fitness certification, as a group fitness professional, or a personal training certification. You have to start somewhere. And that's just like we spoke about before, just the very basics. So you don't have to know everything to start applying it. I think the second myth I have is that there's a lot of people in this industry that want to be a presenter. And I don't think that you have to have the perfect program or the perfect body or the perfect hair or any of that. All the physical appearances out the window. I think that you just have to have the education, and you have to have the passion to want to teach others and want to help them elevate themselves. I think that's what sets presenters apart from each other. You can tell the ones that really have the passion to share their knowledge, and you can tell the ones who just want to be up on stage in front of them. And the third thing has to do with being an entrepreneur. I don't think that you have to go to business school to be an entrepreneur. And as a lot of people in the fitness industry are breaking out on their own to teach classes on their own, or to open a virtual studio, or maybe even do outdoor in-person classes or indoor in-person classes, or whatever the case may be. You don't have to have a business degree. You just have to have the willingness to learn. I don't have a business degree. In fact, I don't have a degree at all. I have certifications, and I have a lot of experience in business, and I run my own business now. I'm going to have 3 conferences in 2022. And so I just want to express to people out there that you don't have to know it all. Education is important. Yes. And you have to keep educating yourself as you go, but you also have to be willing to learn from your experiences and the opportunities presented for you.
Agree. And the one that I'm going to chime in to wrap us up here is the last one, that when I often speak with people and can share, things that I've done over my career, And a lot of them were with technology and websites and other things that are not associated with my degrees. That I do have a background in exercise science, but I can do a lot of things on a computer. And with my businesses that I own, it's exactly what you said, through experience and growing and learning about these items. And I can remember when I started learning about SEO items with all the things that Google has to learn when I owned my first business, which was an outdoor boot camp. And so you don't have to go to business school, and you don't have to go all in on that in your undergrad. You could do what you have a passion for. If it's kinesiology, exercise science, physical education, whatever that might be, and you can apply that with business stuff that you learn. You got to have that drive to learn more in those areas. And I think that that's probably the overwhelming theme of this episode, is just the willingness to learn outside of your comfort zone. I think that that's great to leave people with there. So before we sign off, can you give listeners your social media links, website, and where they can find any information about you and your conferences?
Yes. So I will just give you the biggest one, the DCAC Fitness Convention that's been around. This will be our 31st year, and you can find the links to my other events from there. The Instagram handle is at DCAC Fitness. Facebook, DCAC Fitness Conventions, and website dcacfitness.com. You can find me, Jamie, at dcacfitness.com. That's JAMIE. And then that event is coming up August 5th through the 7th, 2022 in Reston, Virginia. We also have 2 additional events. The Pacific Northwest Fitness Convention, or PNW FitCon, will be April 28th through May 1st right outside of Seattle, Washington. And then the Music City FitCon, which will be in Nashville, Tennessee, October 21st through 23rd. So we hope to see you at one or all of the events. And we're really looking forward to just going back in person in 2022 and really connecting with communities and changing the fitness industry one person at a time.
Great stuff. And we'll make sure to link those in the description for this, whether it's on the landing page or if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, so that you can quickly get information about those. Thank you for coming on the podcast, really diving into all that has to go with conferences, your background, all that kind of great stuff. Thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me.